Hi everyone. So this is going to be actually one of the more important videos I do this year. There are 3 dates, today November the 10th, tomorrow November the 11th, and the day after November the 12th, that are quite important insofar as they come together. And at least 2 of them, November the 10th and November the 11th, are important for astrological reasons that are not commonly held or necessarily commonly known. And so, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you the gist of this recording right up front. I would advise or suggest that you pull out a piece of paper or something and make note of key events that have occurred the week before November the 10th today and the week after. And I'll explain why in a second. It could be that these are relatively mundane occurrences and mundane events, but I have a feeling that as mundane as, or conversations or interactions, I have a feeling that as mundane as they might be, they will have a certain charge to them, a certain synchronicity, a certain serendipity, a feeling somewhere deep inside that there's more meaning behind this. Indeed, there is a charge or a sense of a pivot with these dates that we're talking about. Now, when we talk about dates astrologically, there's a tendency to feel like on a date when something is going to happen, that, you know, the earth will open and there'll be a rabbit hole and you're going to go through it and come out on the other side and you'll be a hare and you'll be eating pansies and daisies and there will be pots of gold and rainbows. That's not the way it works. So be careful of 1111 portal energies and days of manifestation, all these kinds of big dramatic statements that you see posted on social media about astrological dates. Typically, you feel things as they approach, not necessarily on the day of, right? So if a transit is actually occurring, that's when you see the energies happen. And by the time the transit occurs and is moving on, chances are whatever it's been trying to bring has already been in play. So it's not the exact date and time when Jupiter and Venus meet that is necessarily something we have to watch for and pray towards, and you know, it really has more to do with the energy of the time that immediately precedes a conjunction or a square or a trine or whatever it is that we are tracking. Why are these dates important? Well, let me go backwards a little bit. November the 12th is a full moon in Taurus, and I'm going to do a separate video on that tomorrow. So we do have an escalation or a culmination of energies that is on its way. And today and tomorrow are important dates. Today, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th, for some people, maybe even part of the 14th, are going to be important dates to look at with regard to where Taurus is in your chart and what is coming to some sort of culmination there. But for the purpose of this video, the fact that the moon is growing in size in the way that we perceive her has more to do with the fact that as we move towards this date, there is a sense of escalation or emotional intensity that we should not ignore. The other 2 days are more significant for the purposes of this video. When we look at November the 10th, January the 10th is a full moon lunar eclipse in Cancer. On July the 2nd, we had a new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, July the 2nd, 2019, and we have a corresponding full moon lunar eclipse in Cancer on January the 10th. I find that 2 months before a lunar eclipse is an important date or an important marker for that eclipse. The week before, the week after. We're not talking about a very wide range. For some people, the eclipse could be felt now. Eclipses are changes, they are chapter turns, they are book turns, they are significant closings on things. For many people, and for more people, it is events that occur around this time that may have a certain amount of charge, that may feel mundane, but have a knock to them, that start a set of events that then snowball or escalate and move towards culmination and continue to grow in intensity as you head towards January the 10th. So that one phone call, that one event, that one inkling, without your knowing it, by the time you get to January the 10th, could be the thing that snowballs into whatever it is that this eclipse is about. Cancer eclipses have a resonance to whatever occurred around July the 12th of 2018 and then September 12th of 2018, particularly July the 12th of 2018. I did a whole thing on Cancer eclipses, and I'll include that link once I'm done processing this video. Remember that eclipses I'm not the only astrologer to say this, are to me the most important and significant astrological markers and transits and events at any given time. So they cannot be ignored, and they're telling you, especially the eclipse in Cancer, where the North Node is transiting, is what we need to lean into. So for some people, these will be opportunities based on where the sign of Cancer is in your chart. For some people, for example, if you're an actor, you could have an audition this last week, the week before November the 10th, and you could hear about something, that audition the week after, that somehow goes into play by the time January the 10th arrives. So it doesn't have to go live on January the 10th. It could be happening starting Christmas time, and it's just there by that time. So it doesn't have to be a negative change, or it could be something, it's typically something out of the ordinary. It's bigger than normal new moons and full moons that happen every 28 days. So for people where Cancer falls in a more challenging part of the chart, it could be an opportunity to tackle something. But wherever Cancer is where you are required to pick up the sword and continue your hero's journey. You're meant to tackle something. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about Scorpio, and it is Scorpio season, and my last 3 or 4 videos will describe this to you amply, but the eclipse is in the sign of Cancer. So there could be a correlation with things that are happening in the sign of Scorpio with whatever it is that is going on with the sign of Cancer. Again, if you have a version of your chart, for those of you who have the versions of your chart that I have given you, you can look at where Cancer and Scorpio are in your chart and understand and try to see if there are thematic links with regard to what it is that is going on. But the bottom line is that November the 10th is an important and a significant date, and events that occur the week before, so you can go back to last Sunday, I'm doing this on a Sunday, and the week ahead are worth noting. And they will come disguised probably as relatively mundane events. If you are a salesperson, it could be a normal sales call. There's something about, once you get attuned to these cycles, I will tell you that there's something about this past week and this coming week, and you can just look back on the past week, that I think energetically we just, there's a buzz and a stirring around it. So as mundane as these events are, there's a consciousness of change and a consciousness of evolution. So wherever the North Node eclipses occur, the eclipses that we're meant to lean into, the changes that we're meant to welcome and lean into, as terrifying as they are, and as much as we feel ill-equipped to handle the challenges that are laid out in front of us, if these eclipses are happening in challenges parts of our chart, there is an invitation, and at this point in time, it is going to feel like we absolutely have to, like there isn't much of a choice. So pay attention to whatever it is that has been occurring the week before, the week after November the 10th. That is the most important message. It's one of the more important videos that I'm doing this year, and not one that is going to be commonly expounded elsewhere. And make note of it and see what it is that gallops, snowballs as you head towards January the 10th. For some people, these eclipsy type energies may occur this week. Eclipses can also be harbingers. People can be eclipsed out of our lives. This could be relationships, and this could actually be people passing on or transitioning or dying, depending on where they're at, if someone is dealing with something. So there can be intimations of that if you're someone who's dealing with something like that close to you. This isn't necessarily an eclipse of release, but it's an eclipse nevertheless. So it's still, these are eclipses of leaning into. So the frequency of count of something like that may be less, but it's still an eclipse and it has to be mentioned. Okay. So what else is going on? November the 10th is the 2-month preversary of the January 10th lunar eclipse. November the 11th, the planet Mercury, which is retrograde right now, passes by the sun. So the sun is moving in Scorpio, Mercury retrograde is going back, and tomorrow, November the 11th, they conjunct, and then Mercury continues to move backwards till November the 20th, and then starts to move forward. The sun, of course, is always moving forward. This particular date in a Mercury cycle and a Mercury retrograde cycle is an important marker. It is considered the start of a new Mercury cycle. So whatever it is that is coming up around this time, particularly with regard to communication, processing, writing, contracts, it starts a new cycle. There are things that are being made clear to you that will need to be tackled from a Mercury, i.e. communication perspective. It could involve travel, short distance or longer distance, particularly shorter commute type distances, contracts, communications, emails, writing, social media, technology, even just letters, speaking, processing, trying to make sense of things. This is not necessarily the time, but it is a start. Okay, and whatever it is that this cycle starts continues till the next time Mercury goes retrograde and meets the Sun as it is going retrograde. So it is the start of at least about a 3-month period where we're going to be dealing with, where it's inaugurating a cycle where we're going to be thinking, talking, processing, communicating, socializing on certain items. And again, those themes and topics may be coming up and becoming clear over this past week and this week that is coming up. There's something about the fact that all of this is happening together that links these energies together. We will always have a full moon about 2 months before another full moon. That's just a month. That's a moon cycle. It's not going to be exact, but November the 10th, the fact that we have a full moon on November the 12th and the full moon lunar eclipse is on January the 10th is not surprising. It's the 2-month date before that, November the 10th, that I find more significant as far as the eclipse is concerned. Fine. It isn't always that we have this date occur when a retrograde Mercury is meeting up with the Sun. And it isn't just so there, and it isn't. There's an importance to these events that I think that tracking and paying attention to those things that may seem mundane but have had a certain amount of charge, I think is going to be really helpful. Now, when Mercury is retrograde, its energies for most of us feel like they're out of whack. Communication, commuting, technology, cars, vehicles, customer service, travel. When Mercury is transiting the Sun, it's almost like we have a double whammy of the retrograde energy, because in certain cultures, when a planet is close to the Sun, it is considered combust. It loses power, it loses energy. The Sun is so bright that Mercury, next to it, already retrograde, has even less power to exercise its powers in the way it greases the wheels in order to keep things moving forward. Transactions, customer service, technology. So I can't tell you how many instances over the past 72 hours I've heard about travel issues coming up. In some ways, these dates are similar to when Mercury is going direct or retrograde, where you really feel the Mercury retrograde energy at its most intense. So if you feel misunderstandings, miscommunications, delays, slowdowns occurring, know that they might be part of the plan for some reason. And here's the funny thing. A full moon in Taurus is actually really nice. The moon is really happy in Taurus. As things are occurring this past week and this next week, there is some reflection time, there is some escapism time, there is some forced slowdown, there is some rest and observation time that is being given to us. You may find that your time is going into things that are more reflective just automatically. Either you're being pulled into them or you just have a little bit of that time, which is unusual for a full moon, because typically at the time of a full moon, there's building intensity. That may still happen over the next 24 hours. But it's just a really curious energy. It's resonant. There's a sense of synchronicity and serendipity about certain things that are occurring. I would advise you to pay attention to them. We are at the 2-month marker prior to a lunar eclipse, a cycle that has been going on since July the 2nd. July the 2nd and September 2nd are important dates if you're looking to track some sort of correlation with things that you're looking at and looking for. You have the retrograde Mercury meeting up with the Sun tomorrow on the 11th and starting a new cycle. We also have Mercury transiting the Sun and therefore losing power even more to keep Mercury-related items moving forward smoothly and smartly. And I did a video on Mercury retrograde yesterday, so you can take a look at that. Keep in mind that I had to do the Mercury retrograde video 4 times, and even after the 4th time I had to do a part 2. So, and as I said, travel stories, blah, blah, blah. But then you also have, with the fact that Mercury has lost power and we have a full moon in Taurus, strangely enough, some reflection time, some stability windows in which and through which to observe and pay attention to what is going on around us. This is a pivotal time. We're on a pivot. And once we get past this pivot, things will start to move forward and catapult gradually, but particularly in December and as we head to January, in directions that are being set up right now. And for people who are sensitive to where it is that they want to move forward, particularly when it comes to issues related to independence and codependencies, but also issues related to where the eclipses are occurring, particularly where the sign of Cancer is in your chart. There is something, this is a pivotal time for that. And so paying attention to these energies and paying attention to these dates is going to be helpful. Tomorrow I'm going to do a video on the full moon in Taurus, and we'll continue this journey together. Please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, share the video if you find it useful, particularly if you want to tell people to track some of the events that are happening so that they can see if astrology and this kind of stuff works for them or not, or enjoy the process or whatever it is. Feel free to leave a comment if something here resonates, or like the video if you like it. My contact information is going to be in the description area, so you can reach out to me if you are interested in a reading, or if you want me to send you an easy to read version of your chart or something along those lines. And I will be back in touch tomorrow. Thanks.